Dear learners, I welcome you all to this video lecture. I am Dr. Kanchi Bajpai, an assistant professor, guest faculty, Pandit Sundarlal Sharma, Open University, Chhattisgarh, Bilaspur. In this slide, we will covering the topic Age of Chaucer with its historical background along with the concept of Hundred Years' War and Black Death. In this slide, I have mentioned the index of the following topics which we are going to study today. First will be key aspects of this historical background, Hundred Years' War, causes of Hundred Years' War, Black Death, causes of Black Death, and symptoms of Black Death. Now, we will see key aspects of this historical background, which includes the following points. I will give you the brief description of each point. Social and economic turmoil. The Black Death wiped out a large portion of the population, leading to a labor shortage that empowered the working class, ultimately triggering the Peasants' Revolt in 1381. Next, political conflict. The Hundred Years' War against France fueled a strong sense of English national identity, moving away from French influence. Third point is religious shifts. The Catholic Church faced severe criticism for corruption from figures like John Wycliffe, questioning its doctrines, foreshadowing the Reformation. Next point is cultural transformation. This period witnessed the dawn of new learning and the early influence of the Italian Renaissance. Figures like Dante, Petrarch on English literature. Next point is about language development. English began to replace French and Latin in courts and literature, with Chaucer's works helping to establish the London dialect as the standard. In this slide, I have mentioned findings about the Hundred Years' War. Hundred Years' War was a complicated, ongoing conflict between the kingdoms of England and France, rooted in territorial disputes and control of the French crown, spanning about 116 years during the 14th and 15th centuries. It started when English King Edward III, grandson of Philip IV of France, was denied his claim to the French throne and launched a revolutionary attack. It is one type of a revolt. Although the fighting wasn't continuous, with long periods of peace, many battles occurred during the war. Famous clashes such as the Battle of Agincourt showcased the might of the English forces, while strong leaders, including Joan of Arc, inspired the French to fight for their land. Ultimately, France claimed victory, driving the English out of the country, except for the strategic town of Calais on the coast of the English Channel. The drawn out war exhausted both countries but stunted the French monarchy and led England to shift its focus to expanding the British Empire. What were the causes of Hundred Years' War? In the early 1200s, France regained most of its land from England, but the 1259 Treaty of Paris kept the Duchy of Guinea in southwestern France under English control. When French King Charles IV died in 1328 with no male heirs, a cousin, Philip VI, was named his successor over Charles' nephew, England's King Edward III. However, in 1337, Edward formally asserted his claim that as France's proper heir, he should rule both countries. In response, Philip reclaimed the Duchy of Guinea for France, resulting in an English invasion that started the war. The English won several early battles, including the 1340 Battle of Naval Attack, where Edward commanded his English fleet with longbow attacks that won them control of the English Channel. At the 1346 Battle of Crecy, Edward led England's much smaller army against Philip's French forces, again using longbows to defeat the armored knights. The nearly year-long siege of Calais gave England another significant victory, gaining control of the strategic port town that provided a stronghold in France for more than 200 years. The English victories, the 1356 capture of French King John II, and power struggles within the French monarchy led to the 1360 Treaty of Bretigny, which called for the king's release in exchange for a ransom and Edward ceding his claim to the French throne, while still holding control over French territories. In previous slide, we have seen Hundred-Year Wars and what were the causes of Hundred-Year Wars. In following slides, we will discuss about Black Death, causes of Black Death, and symptoms of Black Death. The Black Death was a plague pandemic that occurred in Europe just like the coronavirus which happened in India, in world, that was also a pandemic. Just like the coronavirus pandemic, Black Death was also a pandemic, and Black Death was a plague pandemic which occurred in Europe from 1346 to 1353. It was one of the most fatal pandemics in human history. The plague, the Black Death or plague was a devastating global epidemic of plague that struck Europe and Asia in the mid 1300s. The plague arrived in Europe in October 1347 when 12 ships from the Black Sea docked at the port of Messina. People gathered on the docks were met with a horrifying surprise. Most sailors aboard the ships were dead, and those still alive were very, very ill and covered in black soils that oozed blood and pus. This is the picture I have mentioned here in this slide. This is the picture of Black Death. What were the causes of Black Death? Even before the death ships pulled into port at Messina, many Europeans had heard rumors about a great pestilence that was carving a deadly path across the trade routes of the near and far east. Indeed, in the early 1340s, the disease had struck China, India, Persia, Syria, and Egypt. The plague is thought to have originated in Asia over 2000 years ago and was likely spread by trading ships. Though recent research has indicated the pathogen responsible for Black Death may have existed in Europe as early as 3000 before Christ. What are the symptoms of plague? Europeans were scarcely equipped for the horrible reality of the Black Death in men and women alike. Means the symptoms in men and women are same. Men and women, they don't have different symptoms for plague or Black Death. The Italian poet also wrote about the Black Plague. He wrote that at the beginning of the malady, certain swellings, he wrote about the symptoms of the Black Plague. No? At the beginning of the malady, certain swellings, either on the groin or under the armpits, waxed to the bigness of a common apple, others to the size of an egg, some more and some less, and these the vulgar named plague boils. Blood and pus seeped out of these strange swellings, which were followed by a host of other unpleasant symptoms. And these unpleasant symptoms are fevers, chills, vomiting, diarrhea, terrible aches and pains, and then in short order, death. The plague attacks the lymphatic system, causing swelling in lymph nodes. If untreated, the infection can spread to blood and lungs, which ultimately led to death. In my next lecture, I will be covering again the Age of Chaucer, but with different aspects. My approach will be about the religious writing of the Age of Chaucer. What is ballad tradition? What are the key aspects of ballad tradition? And examples of ballad tradition from the Age of Chaucer. What do you mean by Middle English culture in reference to the Age of Chaucer? Thank you for joining me today. That's all for today's lecture. I will be covering this topic which you are seeing in the last slide of this PPT in my next lecture, that will be the third lecture of this module, this block. That's all for today. Thank you, learners.